Hi, welcome to Escape into a Cause, the podcast inspiring Central Texans to turn good intentions into impact. I'm Stephanie Dyer, a philanthropic rookie, learning how to give back with a little help from my expert friends. Together, we'll share stories of local nonprofits, explore ways to connect, and encourage everyone to step up, unplug, and make a difference. Let's dive in and escape into a cause. Welcome. I'm Stephanie Dyer, the host of Escape into a Cause, and normally I'm joined by my co-host Courtney, but today I'm flying solo. We had to switch things up last minute, and while we'll definitely miss her insight, I'm excited to dive into a conversation with you all. Let's get into it. So we're going to touch the very tip of the iceberg on what's known as effective altruism, or EA. Effective altruism asks us to use reason and evidence to find the charitable causes that can do the most good per dollar. If you've heard me in the past episodes, you might already know that I'm very data-driven. Even my family kind of jokes around with me that everything that I do, I'm trying to make the best decision based off of the data I have, and so therefore I am always trying to collect more data. Effective altruism is saying that we often give based off of our emotions and not data-driven evidence. I was reading Doing Good Better by William McCaskill, which introduces this core idea of effective altruism using evidence and reason to maximize the impact of charitable giving and altruistic efforts. The first story McCaskill shares is about a play pump that was first installed in 1994 in South Africa by its inventor, Trevor Field. The play pump was this innovative water pumping system designed to harness the energy of children's play to facilitate access to clean drinking water in rural communities. It was a merry-go-round with a water pump mechanism, so as children spun on the merry-go-round, the motion drives a pump that extracts groundwater. This seemed like a great solution other than the women of the community going in and hand pumping the water. Sounds great, and it garnered a lot of global attention. It's estimated that at least $60 million was raised, and there were notable people behind this. Laura Bush, the former U.S. First Lady, in 2006 announced support for the play pumps. Bill Clinton had praised it as it gained credibility. Steve Case, the founder of AOL, contributed $5 million. Jay-Z in 2006 raised tens of thousands of dollars. Richard Branson was behind this initiative. And so there was a lot of attention for this play pump to help these African communities get clean water. Seemed fantastic, seemed like a great initiative, and what fun. Children can go play and they can get water. It's a win-win. 2009, some criticism started coming about. Children couldn't or didn't want to play all day just to provide water. Women had to push the merry-go-round manually, and it was much more exhausting and required much more time than a traditional hand pump to retrieve that water, and local communities overwhelmingly preferred the traditional hand pumps. There were high costs to this, $14,000 per play pump, making it 4 times more expensive than traditional pumps. And whenever there was maintenance that was required, it was difficult for them to get the repairs. Overall, there were a lot of challenges. This is a textbook example of why feel-good marketing and high-profile endorsements should never replace rigorous impact assessment. The play pump became an example of how good intentions without evidence-based planning can lead to ineffective or even harmful outcomes. McCaskill used this to argue that charity should be guided by measurable impact rather than emotional appeal. One of the biggest failures of the play pump project was the complete lack of community consultation before implementation. Instead, everyone was bought in by the fact of seeing children play on this merry-go-round, and their dollars were driven by emotion. Let's go give to something that allows children to play and gives back to the community. This was a feel-good donation, yet it had less impact than originally thought. In another example, McCaskill discusses an educational intervention in Kenya. Economists Michael Kramer and Edward Miguel conducted several randomized controlled trials, or RCTs. Now, what these RCTs do is they allow some schools randomly to receive this initiative and some to not, so that they can accurately study whether that program has a positive outcome. So one of the programs was provision of textbooks. What they found was the availability of textbooks did not lead to significant improvements in average test scores. Then they introduced flip charts. Similar to the textbook intervention, the use of flip charts showed little to no effect on students' test scores. suggesting that simply adding instructional material without addressing other factors may not enhance learning outcomes. Third, they had teacher incentive programs. These were financial incentives for teachers based on their students' performance. While the incentives led to an increase in test preparation session and higher test scores, there was no significant effect on teacher attendance, homework assignment, or reduction in dropout rates. This indicates that while the test scores improved, the broader educational engagement and retention did not. So many well-intentioned educational interventions that we would think, okay, this has got to help the students, textbooks, financial incentives. They did not produce the desired outcomes that they wanted to see. At some point during this study, Kramer and his colleagues learned that children in Kenya were susceptible to intestinal worm infections, primarily due to environmental and sanitary conditions. And this had a significant impact on the children who were infected. They had health complications. Cases may result in malnutrition, stunted growth, impaired cognitive development, physical discomfort. And so they decided to run another RCT on a deworming initiative. And what they found was a very positive outcome. The study found that administering deworming treatments to children reduced school absenteeism by 25%. This translates to an additional year of schooling for every $3.50 spent, making it a highly cost-effective education intervention. This required significantly less money and had a significantly higher impact than providing flip charts, textbooks, and financial incentives to teachers. Beyond the educational benefits, follow-up studies with these children also indicated that the ones that received the deworming treatments received higher earnings compared to those who did not receive the treatment. The deworming narrative has faced some scrutiny because there is uncertainty around the magnitude of its impact. Yet, this serves as a compelling example in how evidence-based interventions can yield significant benefits. When we talk about emotional contributions, the play pump versus the hand pumps, it feels good to give to the play pump that costs 4 times more than the hand pump because you can see children playing on it. It gives you this feel-good narrative, whereas it might not have been the best use of money. Nobody asked the community whether this was better than the manual hand pump. On the other side is this Kenya deworming initiative. There was significantly more money funding materials and financial incentives for teachers than to deworm these children, which have shown a much higher impact. McCaskill is quoted saying, "We very often fail to think as carefully about helping others as we could, mistakenly believing that applying data and rationality to a charitable endeavor robs the act of virtue. And that means we pass up opportunities to make a tremendous difference." Further, William McCaskill states, "We should give like we invest, looking for the biggest return." And I agree with that. And so I think this is a good segue to talk about the topic that Courtney and I are going to unpack next week, which is corporate responsibility. This is short for corporate social responsibility, or CSR. Companies contribute just north of 1% of their profit back into charities and local community. We thought this was low. And there's a few reasons why, personally, I think that's low. Ideally, corporations don't have to give back. Ideally, they're not polluting our environment. They are paying their employees very well. Their employees are being taken care of. That's the ideal world. You don't necessarily need that feel good of giving back. But that's not the reality we live in. 10% of all workers are in households where someone is participating in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. Among adult wage earners who are SNAP recipients, 70% of them work full-time every single week. There are 69 million Americans enrolled in Medicaid, of whom 32 million are working-aged adults. Among those working-aged, 42% are employed. These statistics highlight the significant number of full-time workers in the U.S. depend on government subsidized programs. So if private companies are not taking care of their employees and government is having to subsidize, then it begs the question, why aren't they giving more? What is effective altruism for a corporation? I would argue that it's actually paying their workers and ensuring their workers are taken care of at the very least. Here's a great example. In 2020, Walmart committed $25 million to organizations on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic response. That was a feel-good emotional response. Fantastic. October 2024, Walmart pledged $16 million for hurricane relief efforts. Again, fantastic. But in 2020, the Government Accountability Office report stated that just across 9 states, they found that Walmart employed almost 15,000 workers who are recipients of those Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program or SNAP benefits. Further, the Americans for Tax Fairness report in 2014 estimated that Walmart's low-wage workers cost U.S. taxpayers approximately $6.2 billion annually in public assistance programs, including food stamps, Medicaid, and subsidized housing. When I'm thinking about data and evidence-based charitable giving, and I'm thinking of emotional giving, it feels good when Walmart has a headline that they are giving $25 million, $15 million to this or that charitable contribution and to help their communities. What would be less feel good is just paying every worker enough so that the government isn't having to subsidize their livelihood. Something to think about as we explore next week's topic. So maybe start using evidence and reason to maximize the impact of giving back to the world. And sometimes, even for corporations, that means giving back in a non-charitable way, like paying workers. We'll dive into this a little bit more next week, but first, we have Special Olympics. We'll be right back. Escape into a Cause is sponsored by Nightlight Insurance Agency. You know how a nightlight gives you comfort and peace of mind in the dark? That's exactly what Nightlight aims to do. Guide you through life's uncertainties with personalized insurance for your home, auto, business, and more. Nightlight Insurance strives to provide its clients the best coverage at the best price without sacrificing on customer service. Here's what one client had to say. Nightlight was able to lower our car insurance significantly, answered all our questions, and returned our calls promptly. Very professional, would highly recommend. So it's no surprise Nightlight has a 5-star rating on Google. Nightlight also makes this podcast possible by covering production costs so all other sponsorship dollars and gifts can go directly to nonprofits and volunteers. And as part of their mission to give back, Nightlight proudly donates $1,000 to every nonprofit we interview. If you are a sponsor interested in giving back to our podcast, please find us on social media and let us know. Nightlight is an agency focused on personalized service and giving back. See how much you could save and how good it feels to have peace of mind by visiting nightlightinsurance.com. Today, we're escaping into Special Olympics, Central Texas. We have Bruce Williams, who's the coach for San Marcos Wolverines, and Nick, his son, who is a Special Olympics athlete. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate being here. Thank you.
I'm so excited. First of all, one of our very first episodes, we talked about the philanthropy gender gap in which women are a little bit more involved in nonprofits statistically. So I'm really happy I have 2 men across the table from me today. So Bruce, could you tell us a little bit about the mission and what Special Olympics is?
So Special Olympics was designed for athletes that can't necessarily participate in regular high school sports because of disabilities, physical, mental, whatever the case may be. And so it gives them the opportunity to compete with teammates and have that camaraderie that high school athletes get, college athletes get, professional athletes, that these special needs athletes don't get generally. So it was designed to showcase their abilities and their athleticism on a different scale than the traditional high school and college sports.
That's great. And anyone that's been heavily involved in sports knows it goes beyond the athleticism. There's camaraderie, there's community.
Absolutely. And you see a lot of those kids that start off in sports together, grow up together, and that builds lifelong friendships. The special needs community doesn't necessarily have that. Special Olympics kind of fills some of that void, at least.
I looked at Central Texas and where Special Olympics covers, that's called Area 13. And that covers Bastrop, Marble Falls, Canyon Lake, New Braunfels, Fredericksburg, Dripping Springs, Austin, Pflugerville, San Marcos. The reach is wide. And athletes and families that are registered, there's over 59,000 per the 2023 impact report for Special Olympics Texas. San Antonio was the most. Does that ring true?
You know, that specific area, it's pretty big. There's a lot of athletes out of there.
Yeah, I was surprised. 11,000, Houston 10,000, Dallas 7.5K. Central Texas less than 4,000, which I was surprised.
That's changing. I'm sure they've gone up dramatically since 2023. This area, it's growing all the time. We're meeting new athletes that we didn't see last year that are coming into the area or just starting sports.
Amazing. Talking about growth, you just started a delegation in San Marcos in January.
We did. We started with soccer. And we also just recently started track, and it's our first 2 sports. And we have about probably 40 athletes already. It's pretty darn good for just getting started and just getting introduced to the community.
Are most of them moving from other delegations?
Some of them are. Some of them are coming from the local schools that maybe they graduated and they have nothing else to do. We have some athletes like Nick, obviously, that's been doing it for years that came to the delegation. And some of the other athletes that I know from other delegations that live in the area but have had to travel because there was nothing available to them.
That's incredible that you're doing that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. I want to dive into the numbers and the impact. I know we talked that there's annual Olympic Games at the state level. You said it's about 3 times a year.
Yes, there's Winter Games, which we just had this past weekend. There's the Summer Games and the Fall Classic are the 3 big ones.
That's great. And then there's more opportunities. There's the greater Austin area, which there's a dozen or more competitions per year as well.
Yep. State director for the Special Olympic gave me the numbers for this past weekend. So
let's hear them.
So for the Winter Games, the sports they had was floorball, volleyball, powerlifting, golf, and then fundamental sports, which is for athletes that can't necessarily participate in those other ones. Maybe they're in a wheelchair or something along those lines. So they still create sports for those athletes to do as well. Floorball, they had 130 athletes. Volleyball had 337 athletes.
Volleyball's popular. So this is statewide.
Correct. Okay. We also had powerlifting that had 147 athletes.
Okay, including Nick.
Yeah. Including Nick. Golf had 36 athletes, and then the fundamental sports had 27 athletes. And that's just the traditional athletes. There's also a bunch of the unified partners as well.
Tell us a little bit about the unified partners and what that means.
The unified partners is where Special Olympics pairs the Special Olympics athletes with local high school and college athletes from their regular traditional programs. That way it gives the special needs athletes an opportunity to practice and compete with those. And then it gives those traditional high school and college athletes an opportunity to be introduced to Special Olympics athletes.
Great.
That was it for this weekend. My opinion is traditionally the Winter Games is the smallest of the 3. The Fall Classic tends to be the largest, which involves softball, swimming. I think swimming is probably the largest one in the state. From what I've seen, the Summer and Fall Classic will generally have higher numbers than these.
That's great. To kind of wrap up the numbers segment, give a little bit of understanding of how Special Olympics does their fundraising.
Special Olympics, they put on several larger fundraisers every year to help. They have the Polar Plunge March 1st in Pflugerville, and then one of the bigger ones is the Tippecop that they do several times a year.
Yeah, tell us about Tippecop.
Tippecop, it's traditionally been at Texas Roadhouse, and the athletes go there and they partner up with local police, state police, and they go around and get donations and help raise money for the Special Olympics, and that covers all of the expenses for the state competitions.
Is there a particular time of the year?
In the summer.
Okay, great. Now done with the numbers, we would love to connect listeners to Special Olympics Central Texas through stories. Bruce and Nick, each of you has a story to share.
I can definitely talk about what we've gone through starting a new delegation.
Would love to hear it.
It's been challenging because it's hard asking people for especially money to donate to help start the program. So that's something that I've had to overcome because I don't like asking people for money unless I'm doing a job for them. And then it's like, here's my fee. But just saying, hey, we're starting this, can you give me money is hard, especially when you try to get sponsors from businesses, because generally businesses, when they do a sponsor, they're getting something in return. They're getting blasted on the radio or on TV, or they get advertisements. With Special Olympics, we don't really get to do that per se. We can put your logo on our banner and a couple thousand people see it, getting them to understand that this is more of a donation to help the Special Olympics athletes, not to necessarily help your business grow. And then it's been challenging just getting the practice facilities, because especially being a new delegation, when I approach somebody, they don't have anything to look back on. No social media go on and say, okay, these guys have been doing this for years. It's just me saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. Can you help us?
You are at least coming from Dripping Springs, so you have seen how this works. Both of you have participated in Special Olympics for quite some time, so that's hopefully helpful. Courtney Dickey, she is my neighbor, and she starts each episode out with me to talk about a topic that matters. And there's two topics that I'm thinking about right now. One is we talked about individualism in America and how everyone is expected to solve problems on their own. And it's very difficult to reach out and ask for help. I feel like that's a very American thing to not want to go ask for money, to feel like, oh, I need to give something back, right? But if we had a more community-based society, then it would feel like, no, that's just what community does. The other one is corporate responsibility. And that topic is about how corporations, we believe, need to maybe step up a little bit more. Nightlight Insurance is really proud to donate $1,000 to your delegation. And one suggestion I have for nonprofits is there is this 1% pledge where 19,000 companies have said, yes, we give 1% of time, product, and equity or profit to nonprofits. I suggest that nonprofits go look at what are those companies and do you know anyone working for them? Because most of them will have a program match, and that's an easy way to double your money, but it's hard. Kudos for starting the delegation. I know that's got to be really difficult.
Challenging.
Absolutely.
Tough.
Nick, you have a story to share. We're going to get to the good brag in a bit. Do you want to first share a story? Or do you want to go straight into a good brag?
Straight into a
good brag.
He loves to
Good.
brag, you know.
Okay, so this is a segment where we want guests to brag about themselves a little bit, which, first of all, Bruce, that was a good brag, right? You started a new delegation, and I know we didn't call it a good brag, but it's incredible what you're doing. Your full heart is in it.
It is. It takes lots of man hours to make it work. It's worth it in the end when you see them get medals. You know, of course, every athlete wants the gold medal. But I don't care if you get a silver medal or a bronze medal. I just care that you give it 100% effort. And after seeing that, even sometimes when they're dejected that maybe they got a fourth or fifth place, but you still see the excitement on their face. For example, powerlifting this weekend when they reached their PRs, their personal bests. And maybe they didn't get a gold medal, but they're more happy because they hit a personal best.
You versus you, right? That PR, that personal record. I loved it when I PR'd in cross country in high school.
Yeah.
That was the best. Well, Nick, I know that you want to talk about a good brag, and I'm really excited to hear about it.
So this past weekend at the powerlifting state games, out of 147 athletes, I deadlifted more than all of them with 440 pounds, and I PR'd on my record.
Wait, so you PR'd and you won?
Yeah, I beat over 147 athletes.
Incredible.
Then a few weeks ago, I beat out of 102 athletes with 430 pounds on deadlift.
So, Nick, so you're telling me that I'm sitting across from a gold Texas Special Olympian?
Yes,
That's amazing.
ma'am.
That's incredible. So tell me real quick, how have you gotten through this journey? Is it working with your dad a lot? What prepared you to win gold at the state level for powerlifting?
I owe everything to my mom and my dad. They helped me through everything, and my dad helped me. My dad helped push me through. So I owe all of my gold medals to my dad.
Y'all must be so proud of each other.
Oh, yeah.
Now I'm a 5-time state champion in powerlifting.
This is your 5th year?
Yes, every year I got gold medals.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I'm not competing in powerlifting.
Yeah.
That's incredible, Nick. What an incredible brag. In this journey, are you starting to help other athletes and learn how to powerlift? Is that something that you're able to help with at all?
Someday I want to become a powerlifting coach.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah, you got to help earn some more gold medals for other athletes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
My mom told me I should stop lifting.
She's momming,
Mom worry.
right? Mom
Oh,
worry.
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know all about that.
Yeah.
Well, congrats.
Thank
And
you.
very impressed by you, Nick.
Thank you.
That was a great brag. And we want listeners to earn chances for bragging rights. So let's talk at a bigger level, and then we're going to talk about your delegation. Special Olympics, Central Texas. There's many volunteer opportunities. And my son and I actually volunteered at the track competition. That was in, I believe, Leander last year. My son and I had that opportunity and we loved it. So much fun. So you can show up, volunteer. If you want to bring the whole family, do the spectator thing.
These kids love hearing people cheer them on.
Yes.
Does that motivate you, Nick?
Yes, ma'am.
So be a spectator, show up and volunteer. March 22nd, there's basketball at TSU. We have April 4th and 5th track at Leander, and April 17th is soccer at Bastrop. Lots of opportunity to volunteer or just get out there, bring the family, have a good time. And of course, you can also show up as a unified partner, right?
A lot of the local delegations are always looking for unified partners. They go to a lot of the high schools and get a lot of the high school athletes to come out and help. And a lot of those athletes come and help with the events too, even if they're not participating. It's pretty cool to see when you go to the Leander track, a lot of the track athletes from Leander High School there, a lot of the football players come out and help.
When I was with my son, we were doing it through YMSL, or Young Men's Service League, but this huge group of high school boys came towards us, and I was like, who are they? They were all part of the football team. They all decided to come out. So it's really cool. And it just warms my heart. It's like whenever I run races at marathons, the spectators really warm your heart. You're like,
Oh, yes.
everyone's just showing up to show up. And it's that feeling of community. And the fact that all these high school and college boys especially show up too. It's nice to see young men show up for others.
Absolutely. I think it was last year, the year before, Nick, him and another group of the athletes do the 4x400 relay. And they didn't have anybody to run against them. So some of the high school boys did it, and they're all wearing Crocs. It was kind of funny watching those guys wear Crocs, but they did it. And it's good because it gave them some competition. So it's good seeing a lot of those local athletes come out and help and support the Special Olympics.
Yeah. Nick, do you also do track?
Yes.
You do track. Okay. So were you there last year?
Yes.
We were.
ma'am.
Oh,
Yes.
so y'all were around.
I do a lot of sports.
What are all the sports you
I do flag football, swimming, track, powerlifting, soccer, and
Basketball.
basket.
You are an all-around
Yeah.
athlete. So you're going to be basketball at TSU. You'll be there.
I'll be there.
Great. But powerlifting is your strength?
Yes, powerlifting, then swimming.
That's great. So lots of ways to show up. But I know what is top of mind is the new delegation being in San Marcos and having that delegation where it's not too far for people to travel and to participate. You said that you already have 40 or more athletes. It's really exciting. And that really is a good brag for you, Bruce, because I know it's a lot of work.
It is. And my wife, too, she's put in a lot of hours to help. She's more of the administrative side and the uniform side. Her taste is a little better than mine. Just finding the uniforms that she knows the athletes alike and putting in registrations into the computer and all that kind of stuff. So she's put in a lot of hours, too.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I wanted to point this out. Out of all the sports in your new delegation, you're the coach for almost everything, but maybe soccer?
Yeah, we have a soccer coach, and I'd love to have coaches for a lot of the different sports, but I will do it until I develop them.
Help, right?
Help, absolutely. Definitely need help.
If you are into track, basketball, swimming, you just listed volleyball, anything.
Volleyball.
So if you're an athlete and you want to show up, help coach.
Absolutely. They can just reach out our Facebook page, San Marcos Wolverines. That's where we get a lot of people. They see it and they come on and ask us some questions. And that's where we get a lot of our athletes from also.
That's great. Anything else that y'all want to mention?
What made us start the San Marcos delegation was that going to a lot of competitions, we didn't see a lot of athletes from that area outside of the ones in the schools, the junior highs and the high schools. We're trying to build the delegation for those people to have something to do, for those athletes to have something to turn to after school. And even in school, a lot of the schools don't have funding for all the sports. Maybe they have to choose between soccer or track. And so we want those athletes to know that if you have to choose one, we have the other one for you if you want to do it also. Yeah. So
That's
just trying
great.
to grow that program.
And can you just tell me a little bit about, I think in the past, Special Olympics didn't really have that availability for high school. Is that right? Or didn't have that opportunity? Is that evolving?
It is evolving. And in fact, that's how Nick first got involved in Special Olympics was through the Wimberley School District. Was it bowling your first one?
Yes.
So he got started as a young teenager involved through the school. But like I said, the school doesn't necessarily have the funding or the resources as far as help to be able to offer all those different sports. A lot of the schools are slowly offering more and more, but it's still a matter of funding. It's like, okay, are we going to fund the science programs and everything, or are we going to put more funding to the Special Olympics? And while it's growing, the Special Olympics is still on the slower side of what the schools can give as far as funds for those. But it's definitely growing, and you're seeing a lot more younger kids come out for the Special Olympics also.
That's great to hear. Because I think the younger you start, the better. Thank you so much, Bruce and Nick.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you having us out here.
Hey, listeners, let's just take a second to appreciate the fact that Nick is a 5-time state champion in powerlifting. But let's be real, Nick isn't the only one with bragging rights. Bruce is out here pulling off his own kind of superhuman feat. Not only did he start the new Special Olympics delegation in San Marcos, giving 40-plus athletes a place to compete without having to travel too far, but he's also coaching nearly every sport himself. So let's help them make this a success. Do you want to earn some bragging rights? Here's how. Bruce needs some coaching help. Right now, he's basically the Swiss Army knife of Special Olympics coaching in San Marcos. If you have skills or even just some enthusiasm, he'd love the support. Also, donate to the Special Olympics San Marcos Wolverines. Asking for money is hard, but this is such a worthy cause. And if you benefited from sports and community growing up, this is a way to pay it forward. Bragging rights are unlimited with Special Olympics, so show up at events, cheer on the athletes, or volunteer. And if you're really feeling inspired and you're an athlete, become a unified partner and compete alongside Special Olympics athletes. Even my 16-year-old son asked how can he get involved with basketball, and we're looking into it. What is your good brag? Let us know how you're getting involved by tagging us on Instagram and Facebook at Escape Into a Cause or posting in our Facebook group. Because as always, thanks to the Texas Stars Foundation, you might even win tickets. And who doesn't want to win a prize for doing something good? Talking about the Texas Stars hockey team, we will be escaping into the Texas Stars Foundation next week. We get to sit down with their team captain, Curtis McKenzie, who isn't just great on the hockey rink, but is also a great human being who's going to share some of what the Texas Stars does to give back. If this episode inspired you, share it, leave a review, and help spread the word. Stay tuned next week as we escape into a cause. Special thanks to Nightlight Insurance for making this podcast possible, and to Todd Thompson for editing and mixing, Graham Thompson and Jaden Dyer for the fantastic music, Corey McCain at Just Push Record Studios, Michelle Anderson at Pinkle Toast Photography, and Tim Nicholson for branding.